Hey again, everybody. This is Ashley. Welcome back to the Pinkfresh Studio YouTube channel. I'm excited to be sharing a few projects that I created using the fabulous liquid watercolor set from Pinkfresh. I've created some very different designs, and I wanted to show how simple it is and fun to create these backgrounds that you can use in lots of different ways for your card making and paper crafting. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut a piece of watercolor cardstock down to 4¼ by 5½. I'm going to tape that down to my glass mat, and this is going to help prevent warping. I may have a little bit anyway, just because of the nature of using water on really any type of cardstock is going to create some warping usually, but this will help minimize that. I'm going to use a flat, square brushed paintbrush, and then I also have a cup of clean water, and this is very essential for watercolors but also for this particular technique. I'm using the color Bubblegum, and what I'm going to do is create an ombre effect which goes from the darkest saturation to the lightest way at the bottom. Creating this effect is surprisingly simple, and I start out with a heavily saturated brush to do that top brush stroke since that's going to be my darkest. I then dab off some of the paint into the clear water just to pick up some clear water and make sure that it's lighter when I put my brush to the paper, and then I'll drag that saturation down just a bit. I keep doing that until I have pretty much just clean water on my brush, and that's how it will be by the time I get to the bottom. Now, because I really want a lot of saturation, I'm going to bring in my heat gun and accelerate the drying process of this cardstock. So I've dried all of my watercolor, and now I'm going back in and repeating the same exact process. Taking a very saturated brush in my bubblegum color and putting it right at the top. I will go ahead and pick up some clean water, dab off a little bit, and then drag some of the saturation down, pick up more clean water, drag some of that down, and so on and so forth, again, until I pretty much have just clean water on my brush, and that is where I will end with the lightest color there at the bottom. At the very end, what I like to do is dab off all of my watercolor and pick up just clean water on my brush. And then I will go from the very bottom to the top and go back and forth with my clean water up the entirety of the cardstock. And I feel like this just helps the different shades and different intensities sort of blend in with one another. That way we get a really nice, seamless ombre effect. So here is my background finished. I went ahead and trimmed this to 3¾ by 5 inches, which is a bit smaller than an A2 size card. I'm now bringing in the Simple Blossoms stamp set, and I decided to use this stamp set because I really like the shapes of the flowers in the set, and also I love that they're solid stamps. So what I'm going to do is create a really nice focal image for this ombre background, or this ombre watercolored background. So the first thing I'm going to do is prep my cardstock with a powder tool. This will help when heat embossing to make sure that the embossing powder only sticks to where I stamp. I'm using Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, and this is great for heat embossing. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my image right there in sort of like the upper center of my background, and then I'll put on some gold embossing powder. To set this, I'll just need my heat gun, and I want to make sure that I set this evenly and don't hold the heat gun too close. That can burn the embossing powder, and then you don't get a really nice sheen finish. So I went ahead and finished my entire image. I used one of the stem images and then 2 leaves. And now I'm going to use a sentiment from this Delicate Wreath stamp set. I love the font in this stamp set, and I've decided to use the sentiment Hello Friend. To stamp the sentiment, I'm going to use my favorite ink for stamping sentiments right now, and that is the Pinkfresh Black Detail ink. It really gets into the nooks and crannies of sentiments, especially ones that are finely lettered like this, and I get a great impression every time. I'm usually afraid to stamp a sentiment with a block because I'm afraid it won't come out right and I'll need to restamp it, but I don't have to worry because this ink is really amazing for sentiment stamping. To add a little something to the card, I'm going to bring in these slim lacy edger dies, and this one just leaves the prettiest border. You can see they're like sort of half flowers or stars, and what I'm going to do is actually trim that so it's just a very thin strip, and then I'm going to adhere it to the bottom of this card just to add a little something. You can see that I also decided to add a very thin strip of gold glitter cardstock and then some Pinkfresh gems as well. And I love the way that this came out. I could have made tons of these backgrounds and just kept them on hand for when I want to create another card like this, and that would be something that would be extremely easy to do, and it's fun to create the backgrounds as well. Next, I'll be creating a rainbow watercolored background. So the colors that I'm using are Candy Apple, Clementine, Sunshine. This is Key Lime. This blue is Sapphire. And then finally, I have Lavender there in the center. You'll see that I have some other watercolors on the other side of this palette. Those are actually these same exact watercolors, but I dispensed a little bit more than I needed. The great thing about, or another great thing about these watercolors is that they are extremely pigmented, very saturated, and you need a lot less than you think. They will last you a very long time, so I would suggest dispensing a lot less than you think you might need. So what I'm going to do to create this rainbow effect of sort of fading into one another is very similar to what we did last time, only this time I'll be picking up a new color for each brushstroke. I don't want to try to blend these in too much together. I don't need them really to fade one into the other, but I do want it to look like it's one cohesive piece. So I'm going to create a base just like I did last time, and then I'm going to heat set that so that I can make my next layer, which is going to really bring in the saturation. This time I'm not going to do any blending at all. I'm just taking the same colors and bumping up that saturation by just sort of layering it on top of the same colors as before. But you'll see when I grab this blue, it's a lot darker than I expected. Again, these are extremely pigmented. So what I could have done was add a little bit of water to it just to bring down that intensity a little bit, but I really didn't think about it before I went into it. So you can see between the green and the blue, I've got some mudding. It looks a little brown. It's extremely dark. So I've realized I'm probably not going to use this as a background, but I don't want to throw it away because I really love the way that the colors all came together. So instead, what I'm going to do is save it, and I'm going to die cut some letters out of it. If you've ever watched any of my Pinkfresh videos before, you'll recognize these letter dies right away. They are one of my favorite products. It is the Adore Alpha letter dies, and it actually die cuts out the letter and the outline to the letter. So you're able to give it a nice, just a little bit more detail than just a regular letter die because you get that outline with it as well. So you can see that I've left some spaces when I'm die cutting these letters out, and that's because I want to make sure that when I put the letters together, I get this same sort of faded effect that goes from red to orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. So I want to make sure that I put the letters where they're going to be on my card front. Now I've decided for my sentiment, I'm going to spell out hello love. Now I've decided also to do 3 letters across and 3 rows down, and that just happens to leave LOL in the center. And I had a little bit of a laugh. I had to laugh at it because it's not intentional, but obviously it sort of steals the show now. And then I also put my H upside down so it doesn't go from red to orange like the rest. But regardless of that, I love the way that this came out. I love how it all came together, and I think that this will be a really fun card to send to somebody that I haven't seen in a while. I hope that you enjoyed the video and gotten a few ideas on how you can use the Pinkfresh liquid watercolors. As always, all of the links to the products are in the description, and if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.